Good day, folks. Today, we're going to be working on adding a health component to Ruby, as well as sort of changing how speed is hard-coded. So this is going to be a code-heavy lesson. So let's go ahead and check it out. Now I'm going to open my Ruby controller. That's what we'll be working in. Go to your scripts folder. I'm going to be opening up the Ruby controller using something called VS Code. In class, we're either going to be installing it, or you can still use TextEdit. The reason is I just want to have some syntax highlighting, just so it's a little bit easier to read. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that Ruby controller. Okay. Alrighty, so I'm just going to go full screen here, and then I'm just going to kind of zoom in a little bit. Okay. So what are we going to start off by doing? Well, we're going to go ahead and we've got some variables declared with our we've got horizontal, we've got vertical. We also referenced something called, rigid body, just to get access to that. We're going to be, in order to keep track of health, we're going to need to keep track of, we're going to need to create a variable, okay? So let's go ahead and I'm just going to have this, it's anywhere, I'm going to put mine above horizontal and vertical. As long as it's in the bracket for Ruby controller, that's all you need to do. But anyways, we're going to say here public int max health, and that's capital H, is going to be set to equal to 5. And then we're going to do a semicolon at the end. So what does this mean? Public means that other sort of functions and other things in Unity will be able to look at this variable directly. And for our as far as when we're looking at the Unity editor, since this is set to public, we're able to sort of set it from the editor. So it's really easy to change that max health without having to go into the code. An int is basically a whole number. So examples of integers would be 5, 6, 10, 100, a million, like whole numbers, nothing after the decimal point. We've typically been working with what are called floats. Which is going to be things that include, like, for instance, with our speed here, that's going to be like 3.0, 5.0321. Those are examples of float values or data types. Okay, so public int max health. That's going to basically set it so that our max health is going to be set initially to 5, and it's going to be something that's accessible by other things. The other variable we're going to declare is called, we're going to set it as an int, and we're going to say current health. And now notice we're doing what's called camel case, and then we'll put a semicolon here. So we start off lowercase and then uppercase. So typically, like when we code and you have sort of like multiple kind of words in a variable, the way that because we can't say this, that is not a valid variable name. What we do is instead of, because we can't put spaces, we do a capital letter anytime we encounter like a new word. So current, the C in current is lowercase, the H in health is set to uppercase. Okay, so what we're going to do then is in our start function, we're going to go ahead and, so let's go to start. And then we'll go ahead, I'm just going to add this here. We're going to set our, so when the game starts, we're going to set current health equal to max health, and then semicolon. What that's going to do is, like, when the game starts, we want it so that whatever our max health is set to, we want that to now be, we want our current health to be set to that. So think about it like when you start a level, let's say you've got 3 HP or like 3 hearts. Like when you start a level, you want your current health to be set to the maximum value. Typically that's how that goes. I mean, maybe there's other games where you start off with a different level, but what we're going to be doing is, that initial sort of current, the initial entry point for the character, their max health and current health should be the same thing, Okay, so now this is going to be, we're going to scroll down here to after fixed update. We're going to make a new function, okay? So let's go ahead, make sure you're careful with where these brackets are. You don't want to go after this last bracket. Let's go right here, okay? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to say void because we're not going to be returning anything. We're not asking for a value back. This is going to be just a function that's called once like we have a need to change the health. So we're going to call this function name, it's going to be called change health. Okay, capital C, capital H, change health, parenthesis, int amount. Okay. So now what's going to be happening is that when we are calling the change health function, we're going to be providing it with what's called a parameter or an argument that it's going to change the health by a certain amount. So if I would say change health 2, it's going to change that amount, our health by 2. So it's sort of like when you are specifying, this is called a sort of a formal parameter. You're specifying where am I going to put the number this function is given, okay? So let's go ahead and code the rest of it.
Hey guys, quick note, I did make a slight mistake in the production of this video, so I'm just coming back and adding something here. So in this video, I forgot to add the bracket, basically encompassing the function called change health. So what you're going to do is, we just finished specifying the amount parameter that it's going to take. We're also going to just want to do a squiggly bracket to open and then to close. So the rest of the video is fine. It's just missing this bracket here, this open bracket, and this close bracket. So thank you for your patience, and best of luck with this lesson. Good stuff.
Okay, so current health is going to be equal to, now this is going to seem a little bit difficult, but once we walk through it, it's going to not be that bad. It's just, it looks a little bit intimidating, okay? So I'm actually going to just, I'll just type it out. Okay, I'm just going to type out the whole thing, and then we'll talk about what's going on. mathf.clamp, parenthesis, current health plus amount, comma, 0, comma, max health. And of course, put a semicolon at the end. And then we want to say debug.log current health plus quotation mark slash plus max health. And then semicolon at the end. All right, so let's break these things down. Okay, so this might seem kind of crazy. So let's talk about this line here first. Let's talk about this line here. Mathf.clamp. Mathf is a function that Unity has like built in, okay? And clamp, think of a clamp as far as it's going to, like what a clamp does in the real world. It kind of controls or constrains what something can do. Like if we say, I'm going to clamp down on that, you're controlling it. So mathf.clamp accepts what are called 3 different arguments or parameters. And I'm just going to bring this window over here. This is from the Unity documentation. So Unity is this mathf.clamp accepts 3 values: a value, a min, and a max. What that does is it basically says no value that I am fed, okay, it can be above this number or below this number. So it's sort of like a constraint. So the constraints we're putting on this function, let's go back here to Unity, is we're saying the value of current health plus amount cannot be lower than 0, and it can't be higher than the max health, okay? So what we're saying here is this, is that you can't go below 0, like hit points, or 0 hearts, or 0 health, and you can't go higher than the max health. So max health we have right now set to 5. So if you would, when this function, and we'll be calling this function later on, when this function is called, it can't, it's not going to accept values that would change the amount to go below 0, or sort of be able to change the health that would go above the maximum. All right. So that's a little. It's a sort of a big bit of code to digest. But just think of the sort of all it's doing is saying it doesn't want to have any invalid values for health. That's all it's doing. Debug.log. That's a pretty simple situation. That all that's saying is, hey, when you change your health, when this function is called, just have the value of these variables displayed in the terminal or the log, because we're not going to be able to code. We're obviously, when the game is finished, we'll have the health be displayed like to the user as they play it. But like for our purposes, as we're developing this code, we're not quite there yet. So we're going to get sort of the behind the scenes coding done first, and then we'll get the user interface set up how we want it to be. Okay, cool. So that's change health. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to basically change our speed. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and declare one more variable. Let's keep these together. We're going to say public float speed equals 3.0 float. Okay. So we're basically changing this, so we say public. So it's going to be accessible from the Unity editor, and we're declaring a variable called speed, which is of the type float, and we're going to set that initially to 3.0. Now, what we're going to have to change though is, I'm just going to copy this. We have to go back to our function as far as with our move function. As far as fixed update. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to say here where it says 3.0f, we're going to replace that with the variable speed. We're going to do that so that we can, so I adjusted it in 2 different places there, and that's going to change it so that like we don't have that value hard-coded. So if we'd have some reason to make an adjustment later, it'll be really easy to do so because we declared it as a public variable. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then let's go to Unity and just check out sort of like what changed. So let's go to Ruby, and then the script did not push out yet at this point. So let's go ahead and do that. And if I fail there, I will just stop the video, because it should have pushed the script out. So I will troubleshoot this behind the scenes. I think I just opened up the wrong version of this. All right, I'll be right back. So yes, that was the issue. I was working with the script for my practice rather than the one I use for recording. So that's all it was. So yes, when we go to the Ruby object, we see now we've got 2 variables we can adjust from the editor. So that's pretty cool that we have that, so we don't have to go into our code if we want to make an adjustment to speed or max health. This is a pretty good place to end. We're going to be changing we're going to be adding some things as far as pickups and actually calling the change health function that we created. So wish you the best of luck. Great stuff.